Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. In the future, depending on where you're joining us from, it's been great to see the registrations coming in and for everybody to say where they're joining in from and seeing from all around the world. So we are excited to have this conversation with all of you tonight or in the morning or whatever time of day it is for you. And so I do first want to say thank you to Kira Learning, who is presenting the session with us. And it is, well, you'll learn more about Kira as we talk. But the biggest focus of us talking here today with this panel is focus on AI literacy and understanding what our role is as educators, helping our students and ourselves understand what do we need to be doing when we have all of these different AI-powered tools and AI is surrounding us. So throughout our panel discussion today, we have a lot of questions. We'll have some great discussion. And I do encourage you to get involved in the chat with us. We will be watching the chat, the comments come in. If you have questions, please ask them. If you have answers to questions asked, please answer them as well. And first, in the chat, wherever you are joining us from, and before I get into the introductions of our panelists, where are you with AI today? If you wouldn't mind typing in, are you curious? Are you testing it out? Are you using it weekly? Are you just all in? So again, curious, testing, using weekly, or all in. So with that and your little task, I am going to ask my panelists to give a little bit of an introduction about themselves. And I'm going to first invite my friend, Jeff Bradbury, to introduce himself, and then we'll go to Rick and Courtney.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It is great to see everybody out there. My name is Jeff Bradbury. I'm an educator from Connecticut, and currently I'm teaching middle school and technology education. I'm also the founder of the TeacherCast Educational Network, and looking forward to not only sharing some of the things that we're doing these days with artificial intelligence, but also learning from everybody here, including everybody out there in the chat. So let's make a lot of chatter out there. If you're on YouTube or on X or any of the platforms that we're streaming to, we would love to hear from you guys. Hello, my good friend Rodney. It is so nice to see you today.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeff. And we're going to go over and have Rick introduce himself.
Hi, it's great to be with you all here today. My name is Rick Gaston. I'm the head of teacher professional development with Kira Learning, and I'm a former high school mathematics teacher and computer science teacher, former high school principal here in Oakland. And I'm excited to be working with Kira and with lots of teachers out there to help them to learn the new AI tools and how to make best use of them to support their teaching and their student success.
All right. Thank you so much. And Courtney, over to you.
Hi, I'm really excited to be here. My name is Courtney. I'm the Teacher Professional Development Manager here at Kira, and Kira is kind of an all-in-one AI platform for teachers and students to learn and magnify their learning experiences through AI. So Rick and I work in the professional development sphere, working with teacher development and making sure that all the really amazing educators out there know how to work with AI to the best of their abilities.
All right. Well, thank you. And thanks to everybody joining in. It's great to see so many friends joining us tonight and the numbers increasing. So keep those comments coming and the questions as well as we dive in. And we're going to start with initial skepticism. And that's going to be what we are going to address first. And so the question, and I'll put some of the questions up here for everybody to see as well. And we would love to hear, your input as well, because we are going to learn from you. But the question that I present to the whole panel is, in thinking about AI, many educators are still somewhat hesitant to introduce AI into their classrooms, into their practice, into their schools. And so the main question is, what have you found to be most effective for addressing that initial skepticism, whether it's from colleagues, from students, or potentially from families as well? And not to put anybody out there first, but if any one of you want to tackle that question first, or any of our friends that are joining in, if you would like to share your answers in the chat, please do.
Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
I mean, I look at this question as both simple and complex, right? There's educators that are out there that are trying to figure this out, but aren't quite yet sure how to do it. And there's educators that are out there not sure what to do and they're scared. And then you have the educators that are on the completely other side of the innovation curve going, no, we still need to learn how to hold and use pencils. That world just doesn't need to exist. And it's how do you work with all of those at the same time? Because I mean, we talk about the digital divide being, those who have and those who haven't, but now we're dividing even more, and then we're dividing even more. I have a wonderful staff that I work with. I had a great conversation the other day with a music teacher who was trying to figure out how to use AI to create a budget for himself. And he was trying different ways, and he came up to me and says, I've done seven or eight different ways to do this, and it just doesn't work. I hate this thing. And I said, well, were you specific with it? Did you say create a budget that looks like this, or create a budget that I need it to have these things on? And he goes, I never thought of saying that. Okay. So we're training everything constantly. And I said, you didn't find, you didn't fail 8 ways. You found 8 ways that it didn't want to listen to you and didn't want to go through you. I said, did you tell it that it needs to look like a music teacher? Or did you tell it that it needs to feel like a middle school teacher? Did you tell it that it only had a budget of so much money for music? He goes, no, I just said, give me some pieces. So making some progress here or there. Also, I've had a background for the last 15 years as an instructional coach, and I always have the philosophy of what is the one thing I can try my best to give you that nobody else can? And the answer is always time. So starting off the year, I was sharing with some teachers how to open up Google Classroom and how to go into the area where you create forms, and it automatically figures out what the topic is, automatically comes up with the answers, and then right into Google Forms. And you have I was sitting with the teacher, and she just goes, oh, I can now play with my kids. And I went, yep. Now she's coming to me asking questions, but you had to put that little spark in her, and you had to put that little light bulb turn on, and, slow and steady for me.
I'd love to add on to that. I think that that's all like a great description of kind of this lack of like skill and understanding. And I think the fear of the unknown is a lot of what stops people from engaging with the AI. And I think it's a little fear of the unknown and a little bit of stereotype of like, this is the thing that students use to cheat with, or this is just a shortcut, and using this is somehow replacing all of my expertise as a teacher. And I think it's important to note that like using AI doesn't mean you always have to use AI, but also I agree that like finding those pain points and those things that are taking your time. I was a math and computer science teacher in New York City schools for 9 years. Grading took so much of my time. I hated having to deal with grading. And if I had had an AI to do it for me then, I probably would have had a much better work-life balance and maybe would have been in a completely different place now.
Yeah, thank you. And Rick?
Yeah, I have to say I agree with my colleagues here about the fear of the unknown for so many teachers. We like to meet teachers where they're at to help them begin with AI. Start with some lesson content they're comfortable and familiar with, and have them experience how easily and quickly some of these AI tools can provide new ideas for their lesson plan in that content area. Kira would really believe in learning by doing. So we facilitate that process for teachers to experience that our AI tools can be their teaching buddies.
Yeah, all great points and some great comments coming in. And I will say, just adding on to that, is that in all the years I've been doing some training on AI to teachers, initially there was a lot of like, kind of, hesitancy, like, is it going to stick around? Is it a fad? And for 5 years, like, oh, how do we teach about it? Will we learn? And then ChatGPT comes along and all of these other great tools. And even more recently, I've had some teachers say, even walking into sessions I was going to do PD for, say, I don't have any plans to use AI. And I was like, okay, well, I hope I can change your mind. And I said, but tell me why, because I want to hear what their concerns are. And there are a lot of concerns about students being on their devices, the safety and data privacy and a lot of things. And I think giving some, small steps, like one thing at a time, understanding what AI is. And it doesn't have to involve technology initially, of course. It's just understanding and building that knowledge over time, and engaging people in the conversation, because everybody's going to have a different perspective, of course, as we know, as we're seeing coming in and as everybody here on the panel is representing. So keep those comments coming, please do. And so we're going to shift a little bit from that initial, skepticism that we were talking about And Courtney, I'm going to actually come to you with this question, because talking about, we always talk about balance, finding balance. And the reality is, like, I don't know that we can ever find balance, right? No matter what you do, it's going to be something that is slightly imbalanced. And so my question to you is, and to anybody who is listening to, is how do you balance when you have AI tools that you're trying to save some time and keep lessons rigorous, meaningful, and aligned to your instructional goals? Like, what is the magic answer to that, if you have one?
Yeah, I mean, I think rigor has never really been about how many worksheets get cranked out or the exact task even. It's really about how teachers are able to push their students' thinking and having kind of those high touch moments where you can sit with a student and ask them follow-up questions and make those human connections. And I think that's a beautiful place for AI to come in and take over some of the really repetitive tasks that happen in prep, so that you're allowed to have more of those high touch moments with your students.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I love that, high touch moments. And Jeff, I'm going to go over to you on this. Is there anything that you can add? Because your role as an instructional coach, I know you work with students as well, but whenever you are coaching teachers, and they may be thinking like, well, okay, I'm doing this and all of these different things. How do I find the balance? Like, what is something else? What is some advice that you might offer for some teachers that are out there that might be thinking about like all of these things and that ever elusive balance?
So you just mentioned the phrase teachers are thinking about. Let's face it, it's the 10th of September. For me, I'm on my 11th day of school. Right now, teachers aren't thinking. They're just trying to get in. They're trying to get ready. They're trying to survive. They're trying to get used to. I've tried already with some teachers walking in, hey, have you tried this? And you're like, whoa. So putting that coach hat back on, I always start with, how you doing? You got to get that temperature. You got to start asking questions. Are there things that you're trying? A lot of my conversations right now with teachers are, my hope, prepping me for conversations later in the year. They're not ready for things yet. I have had great conversations with administrators. I've had great conversations with other people in the building, and you could tell there's a lot of questions. You could tell there's a lot of, I'm not understanding. But what I'm trying to work on right now is modeling. This is how I'm doing things. I'll give you an example. On my class website, for all my, the stuff that I teach on every day, I started using the videos that are produced by Notebook LM. And they're basic right now. You could see where they're going with things. But what I've found is that the kids are listening to them. And I've done this. I teach an AB schedule. So I've done this 10 times now over the last 2 days, where I don't know if you can hear, my voice is going, but those videos have helped me out, because now it's 10 minutes that I don't have to engage in the classroom. It saves me a little bit because for the next class that I'm teaching, but the kids are using them. The kids are learning from them. And I'm kind of prompt engineering myself to kind of hone in what those videos look like. I always start with, you're a middle school teacher, and this is the best lesson you've ever taught. And do what you can to get the kids all excited and explain the topic and all of those great things that are happening. And the videos are doing really well. I stick them right on the top of our Google site and I play them. And so that way, when the kids are like, well, what is our assignment? What do we need? I'm like, dude, it's all right there. What I'm trying to do is model all of this stuff. And then I bring other students or other teachers, and I'm like, look at this and look at this and look at this. And oh, by the way, you can do this too. You take everything that you have, you stick it in as a source, you say a couple of things. Hey, here's a prompt. You could use mine. And now you have you have a do now, you have a cool down, you have a something. It gives you a couple minutes to walk around and help out the students, or in my case, take attendance while, your teacher helper, if you will, is in there. So for me, I'm modeling this stuff constantly, trying to set up who is interested, who isn't interested. And I'm doing that with teachers. I'm doing that with building administrators. I'm doing that with district administrators. How can we model the stuff that we hope to see? And fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed for sure. Yeah, it is difficult sometimes to think about the balance, especially if you've been teaching a certain way or using certain materials. And then now, like, I feel like in education, we go in these different waves, right? There's this period of like, oh, there's this new thing. And okay, we settle in. Oh, there's this other thing. And then we settle in. And it's just, we have to be adaptable and flexible and model that for our students. But I also think about when I talk to teachers is, what is something that is very time consuming for you, that is challenging, you're looking for new ideas, and even simple things. Like, it doesn't have to be like, the word innovative sometimes is scary to people, but that just means you're doing something new or different to you. And it could be something that's simple, like an image, and asking students to describe it. And it doesn't take a ton of time, but you can really level it up. And so there are a lot of possibilities. And so thinking about the possibilities, because we know with AI, there are some awesome things. I say possibilities and responsibilities. So now we're going to shift a little bit to critical analysis and digital discernment. And I am a huge fan of this digital discernment. I did not make it up, but I read a book by Kevin Roose, who is a New York Times columnist, and he had written a book called Future Proof. He actually was a closing keynote speaker at the ISTE conference 2 years ago, and I had the opportunity, I was very nervous about it, to interview him after his keynote. And one of the things, I'd read his book prior to that, and he talked about this shift from, digital citizenship and media literacy and digital literacy to now it's digital discernment, because you really cannot tell the difference between something that is like a real image or real text and, the reliability and accuracy of information. So you really have to build these skills to be able to analyze things at such a high level, to discern them. And so that was something that really stuck out to me. And so, Jeff, I'm going to come back to you, but then I'm going to go to Courtney and or both and Rick for this. But, as a coach, and I just gave a little bit of my input just from my experience from reading that book. But, as educators, if anybody is listening who is thinking, I'm worried about students losing their critical thinking skills, creativity. They're going to be using AI in the inappropriate ways and using it to cheat. But how can educators guide students to go higher at the level and critically analyze this AI generated content that is all around us and develop those skills in digital discernment, because that is what is going to keep them, safe and also help them to build the skills they need for the future. So what do we do?
I had a conversation the other day about how I'm using AI both as an educator and as a content creator. And the person I was speaking with thought that I just went to AI and said, make me this, and it works. And I through the course of the conversation, I actually had to explain, for me as a podcaster, as a blogger, writer, it's not the first 5% that I use AI for. It's actually the last 5%. I'm still doing all the work. I'm still doing all the research. I'm still putting things together. I'm still trying to figure things out. It's only at the end of the final product when I click on the button that says, okay, I wrote this sentence, but could you make it sound a little bit nicer? But I'm using it to finish the product, not do the product. And even in the last couple of days working with my students at home, I have to just shout out because, triplets and stuff like that. I'm trying to show them how to do stuff. And of course, now that they're in middle school, they're like, oh, let's just use this thing constantly. And I'm like, okay, but let's do the project first and then use it as the candles on the cake. Don't use it as the flour and the eggs. And you can still do that. You can use Notebook LM to make the recipe and make it all together, but then you're not really going through the learning process yourself. So as an educator and as a father and as a content creator, I guess, I'm trying to teach them how to make the recipe go well. And then before putting the plate on the table, then touch that little pixie dust of AI onto it. There's times where we're going to back that up and we're going to use AI to make the entire thing. But right now it's okay. No, you have all the information. Use AI to make the slide deck look nicer. Use AI to make that one sentence go nicer.
I do like the pixie dust. Oh yeah. Go ahead, Courtney.
Rachelle, I'm really glad you mentioned a New York Times columnist, because I would love to suggest another one. If people have not read anything that Natasha Singer has published, she does a lot of critical writing on what tech looks like in schools and what computer science looks like in schools, and has a terrific article that came out a few years ago that was actually from my old school and with one of my very close friends, who did an activity with students, having them analyze work a teacher had done and the same work that an AI had made in the context of lesson planning, and had them kind of decide where are they comfortable with knowing the AI did work and where does it make more sense for a teacher to do work. And I think having them put on like that metacognitive hat is really important and helps them to be more self-reflective about what AI looks like in their own practice. I also think just choosing AI that is going to demonstrate to students what high-level learning can look like is important. In the Kiraverse, we have an AI tutor that's built into our courses, and we've worked really, really hard on the prompting side to make sure it doesn't give away answers, it gives nudges, it asks questions, it kind of forces them to be a little bit more thoughtful than just going to it for an answer. And I think if students can have those early learning experiences that show them this is a tool and not just the thing that's going to do your work for you, I think that can really help.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And thank you for somebody else to look up to do some more learning and reading. And Rick, anything that you would like to add to what Jeff and Courtney had said as far as like, educators who are thinking about how to guide students in this, higher level thinking, are there any activities that come to mind that you could recommend that teachers could like tomorrow go into their classroom and like, hey, I got this new idea. I had this webinar last night and I'm going to try this activity with my students.
Yeah, I think this area of critical thinking is so huge and important to us, important to me and folks working here at Kira. So in your class tomorrow, have AI help your students to strengthen their arguments. Give your students a writing assignment where they have to make some kind of case for a certain viewpoint in your subject, and then have students ask the AI tool to generate some counter arguments to their claim, and then finally improve their argument to address the counter argument. So through this practice, students can learn to anticipate what those counter arguments might be as that are offered to their claims and strengthen their arguments ahead of time. And this can happen by using AI as an intellectual sparring partner to sharpen their critical thinking. So just something you could do in class tomorrow.
I like that intellectual sparring partner. That's a great idea. Yeah, great ideas and easy to do, because I think a lot of the time educators I've spoken with will say like, I'm not sure where I fit it in and it's going to take a lot of time. And I always say like just little pockets of activities, like one little activity you can do. And it's just like a little tweak or a shift in what you're already doing. It's just a different way of going about that. And so thank you for sharing that idea and for all of you for answering that question. And so now, and Rick, I'm going to come back to you on this one because we're going to get into a topic that I do really like to talk about. I am a huge fan of legalese and talking about ethics and being fully transparent. And so we are going to talk about this. And I hope that people that are joining us will also chime in with some of their comments as well or questions. But in talking about and thinking about the work that Kira does, Kira emphasizes transparency and student data protection, which is like way, way up there. I could tell you, and I'm sure that you all know, when thinking about the use of AI in our classrooms and our schools. And so my question for you, and anybody else can answer as well, is how do privacy and ethical use shape the way that you build these AI-powered tools for classroom use for students and for teachers?
Yeah, I consulted with our VP of AI, Jagrati Agrawal, on this, and Kira absolutely puts a high priority on ethical usage and ethical development of our AI tools. So we notify teachers immediately whenever students are saying something to our AI tutor that is inappropriate or expresses concerning behavior, because they may get into that kind of back and forth or feel like it's sort of that relationship where they want to say things to the AI tutor like that. And so we notify teachers about that. And teachers can also view at any time the text of the students' chats with their AI tutor, and we'll let the students know that, hey, your chats may be viewed by your teacher ahead of time. The AI features in our platform are designed so that critical information like grades or feedback that's generated by AI are never released directly to students without teachers explicitly reviewing and maybe revising that text before releasing them to students. So for Cura AI tools like our plagiarism and our AI copy detection tools that we're developing and have made available now, after the teacher reads the tool's analysis about the student's work, the teacher can then interrogate the tool about how it arrived at its conclusions about the student's work. So this allows the teacher to understand and be more confident in the tool's assessment about whether the student did plagiarize or copied from AI ahead of time before talking with the student and probably the parent about the potential plagiarism. So this is the way we develop our AI tools. As for data privacy, all the data that is sent to any of the external AI tools that we use, like GPT models, is anonymous, and we don't share any teacher or student personally identifiable information. And none of the data we gather from teachers or students is used to train any of the external models, which is actually an open AI privacy policy that they don't use that kind of data for training. So those are some of our practices in those areas.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. And I will say that I was, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago now, I was doing some training, and I have been asked a lot over the last 3 years almost at this point, because we're approaching the 3 years and ChatGPT and all the conversations started about plagiarism and AI detectors and everything. And I have been asked about, what do I do? Like, what can I use for students? And I was showing Cura to some of the teachers there. And
Nice.
it was like, I was making up, type me this, 300 words, 400 words at this level and so forth. And they were really quite impressed with the output. And not just that, like seeing like why it was saying that it was AI generated, like the reasoning behind it. And so, but also, reassured by like what you're doing to protect the privacy for students, for anybody that's using it. So that's really, really important. And then, and thank you for sharing all of that. And Courtney, is there anything that you wanted to add to that piece, since we're talking about Cura learning here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only other piece where ethics is concerned is the way the product itself is built to make sure it's able to support all learners. We have a lot of former educators on our team who are always kind of chiming in to the products and the prompts and the process to make sure that we have things that will be useful for our students who are coming in with IEPs, or our English language learner students, or just students who are in a different place when they're accessing the material than everyone else in their course. And I think it's important to, in the ed tech space and in the AI space, to make sure the tools you're engaging with take those things into consideration and do the most they can to combat any bias or kind of ableism that's built into technology inherently.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. So yeah, so anybody who is listening, and there's such great comments coming in the chat, like it's so active. I'm trying to keep up with all of them, and I'll go back and check those out as well. And so we still have some time left to get in some other questions, but you may be listening and thinking like, wow, this is a lot. We have AI, we have these different tools, we have considerations like ethics, we have to worry about bias and privacy and all of the different things. And so, Jeff, I'm going to come back to you for this one. I could answer this, but I'm going to I'm going to take the pause. But here's my question to you is, so people are listening and they're thinking, you know what, I'm really curious about this, but I feel a little bit overwhelmed. And overwhelmed is a word that I know that you probably hear a lot. We all hear a lot, especially when it comes to technology. So what if they are feeling like, yeah, this sounds great, but I'm not so sure? What advice would you offer them if they want to explore AI and dive in, but they're not exactly sure where to start?
Well, there's a lot of answers that come to mind with this. And the first one that I always give people, and I just gave this the other day, just start by asking it a question. Sit down with ChatGPT, with Gemini, with something. It is intimidating. It really, really is. You're afraid you're going to break it. You're afraid you're going to do the wrong thing. You might have I'm never going to use this. I don't know why I'm going to need that. You might have all of this kind of, hesitation. The way that I put myself into this world was I was redesigning my website, and I just sat down one day and I opened up Gemini and I said, let's try this. And I said, I need to create a brand kit. Here's some colors. What do you think? And it spit stuff back to me. And then I said, okay, that's kind of fun. And then I went to a different one and I did the same exact thing. Hey, I'm trying to redo this. And I just did a copy and paste of the prompt. And I had ChatGPT, Copilot, and Gemini running at the same time. And I was just asking different questions. just to see what this thing is. And then it just, more and more you figure out which one talks a certain way and which one responds a certain way. The only way you can really figure this out is just to play with it and just to have the conversations. We can do PD. I can give you some blog posts. We can do the podcast, all those great things. But there's no substitute for just sitting down and trying it. And I know there's teachers out there that are watching this going, I just don't know where to start. I don't have time. My students, my teachers, all of that stuff. But spend 5 minutes, right? What is it that you need to do today or right now? We're going to do a lesson coming up on, here's what I did this week. We're going to do a 7th grade lesson on the introduction to Google Slides. So I went into Gemini and I said, I'm a middle school teacher teaching about Google Slides. Can you give me 10 vocabulary words that my kids would need to know? Done. And I went, oh, okay. And then I put it away. Let's try something different later. And it's, if you can figure out a way to save yourself 30 seconds here, 30 seconds there, suddenly you start to get more comfortable with things. It's still scary. Not going to lie. I say we are having a conversation. Well, who's the we? But having the ability to figure out what you need and go, can I do this or can something else do this for me? You start to realize that you can have a few more minutes of your time. You start to realize that you can have your prep period back. You start to realize that some of these things can be done for you. And for me, it's, there's a lot of things that I have to do today. There's a lot of things that I have to do to get through the day. But if it can help me save a couple minutes, that's a couple minutes that I have with the kids.
And I love that, whether they're your own kids, in your case, triplets, or the kids that we have in our classrooms as well. So and we have even more people joined in. So we're gonna pivot a little bit. And Courtney, I'm gonna come over to you because there are a lot of questions coming up about obviously like AI and how do we get started with it, and some other great ones in the comments as well. I see about environmental impact, and like so many questions. And I will tell you that if we don't get to your questions during our live time today, we will follow up with some resources and the recording so you can go back to and provide as much as we can for you to answer those questions. And you can always reach out to any of us, of course. But Courtney, turning it over to you, we're going to see if this actually works. But if you want to go ahead and get started, I will get this ready for you and hopefully it actually plays. There we go.
Sure. So this is just a quick preview of the Kira platform, and I'll talk a little bit more about why it's important. But I keep mentioning, and Rick keeps mentioning, this built-in AI tutor, which we're really proud of. It's something students can ask at any time, either by highlighting text, which you're seeing on the screen, and then asking a question, or by just talking to it directly. It does a great job of not giving the answer. You're going to see at some point me ask it directly to solve for me, but it'll also walk you through things in ways that are highly scaffolded. It'll provide support questions, extra practice problems for students who need it, and it's something that's subject agnostic. So it works with any course in Kira in any subject area. We can see it right now working on a math problem. Kira began as a computer science platform, so it also works fantastic with code problems. And this is something available to both teachers and students. So we have many a user on the Kira platform who is a first-time computer science teacher, and they rely quite heavily on the AI tutor as their learning content and trying to teach. And I think that's maybe a good segue to kind of how to get started and how to address this to students. There are courses directly in Kira for folks to access and use. We have an AI Demystified course, which is specifically geared towards students. I saw a question from Jamie in the chat about how to teach students how to use it responsibly. And I think that course is a great starting point because it really digs into like what AI is, what it's doing, making sure they have a strong understanding. And the AI 101 for Educators course focuses on AI literacy for teachers. So for folks here, for your colleagues at work, those are things that you could access today, or you can join us for our AI 101 for Educators cohort, which will be starting in October, and that we're happy to share more information about. But as we can see on the screen, I've been having quite a long conversation with this AI tutor, and it eventually got me to the answer. If I had chosen to use it in other places, it would have been supported. We can still see the peeking little Kira in the lower corner on all of these questions, including on some of our code-based questions. So again, that's available for teachers and students. And I think at the very end here, we'll see the teacher side of the platform. There are also many other AI tools that exist that people can play around with, from quick graders that will help you grade and assess your work and check for plagiarism, which it's very powerful. Our AI engineer who made it is fantastic and utilizes web scraping alongside AI to get really accurate results, as well as a lot of instant generators to help you make things you need for your class quickly.
And that is amazing for sure. And a lot of comments coming in, people saying like, I love that AI tutor and I'd love to be part of that cohort. And Lindsay says you can adjust support level, reading level per student. It will never give direct answers and provides context-aware, course-specific feedback. And that is something that is, a big concern is if there is the capability for students to have like an AI assistant similar to what we as educators can use. Is it giving them the answers versus is it there as their coach to kind of say like, remember, this is how you do this, or just a little bit of a hint just to get them started, and what a difference that can make. And since we're talking about Kira here, Rick, I did have a question for you, talking about, and this actually came up in the comments as well, is looking at students who have diverse needs. And so it could be different reading levels. We have language learners. We have students that have IEPs, for any different type of plans they may have. So how can AI tools help educators to address those different needs without it actually creating more work for the educators in the process?
Yeah, differentiating instruction is always a huge challenge for educators, and the tendency is always just to teach to the middle, right? Teach to the middle kid. But Kira has a great set of AI tools to really support teachers in differentiating content for your variety of students. We have a tool that can quickly create an IEP, for example, to support the given special needs of a student. But my favorite right now is one that we've been using with our teachers, and they've been appreciating, a tool that lets them create some supplemental content based on the interests and the context that students in their class find engaging. For example, a math teacher might ask our tool, which we call Make It Relevant, to create examples and practice problems where students develop their skills with ratios and proportions in like a basketball or swimming or football context that the teacher's students are interested in. Or an English teacher can prompt the Make It Relevant tool to create an assignment where students practice their skills writing persuasive arguments, and ask the tool to tailor the assignment for the strong interest he knows that many of his students in class have in pop culture, style, and fashion. And it's really motivating to students when the work that they're doing, they're passionate about the context of that work, right? We've also talked about Kira's AI tutor, of course, but just wanted to mention also the Kira teachers always have control over the settings for our AI tutor. So if students are over-relying on the tutor in their work, then teachers can scale back the level of support that the tutor provides for individual students or for the whole class. And if individual students need more support for their special learning needs, then teachers can also increase the level of support that the AI tutor provides to that individual.
Oh, thank you so much. So anybody that's listening, like if you have not yet checked it out, we will make sure that you can go straight to the site, check it out, and use it for yourself. So Jeff, guess what? It's time for you to come back on. And I'm going to dive in a little bit for you with this topic: AI as a learning partner and not a shortcut, because we've been talking a little bit about this as using it as an assistant, and all the different ways. We know we have people commenting about how they use it. I've heard a lot of different interesting ways people are using AI, not so much in the classroom, but for you in the work that you do. In your opinion and your experience, how do you help students see AI as a learning partner rather than a shortcut? And, what are some strategies that you can suggest that help to build student ownership and, lessen that likelihood that there's like an over-reliance on AI, like, oh, it can do it all for me?
It's a great question. And it's a topic that honestly I'm fighting for a lot. And before I give the answer, I just want to go back and give a definition of what artificial intelligence is. Because when most of us are looking at the words AI or artificial intelligence, we are thinking the chat GPTs. In my world, it doesn't have to be. Going into a Canva, going into some kind of a graphic app and saying, make me a slide that looks like, that's AI. That's a learning partner. Even today with my kids, we did a lesson where we kind of went back into their youth. And I said, what does a third grade slide deck look like? And we said, oh, it's got, the neon colors and fonts and animated graphics. And I said, our goal today is to get past all of that. And we're going to start to make more professional looking slides. Well, using some of the new tools that are in Canva, in the Google Slides, in a few of those other things, we're using AI as a learning partner. So I'm trying to teach them how to use artificial intelligence to support their work. This is not teaching them how to cheat on an English test, right? So it's a different version, yet it's still AI. It's still a learning partner. Trying to figure out how to create an image, trying to figure out how to, craft a paragraph after you've done all the research to put the time into it. It's when we define the thing the way that it should be, not the way that we fear, that we can move forward with this. And when I look at my kids at home, when I look at the kids at school, and when I look at my adult kids that I, coach all the time, it's AI is all around us. You can't get away from it. So how can we use it as that guide on the side, as that learning partner, as you will, to help us get done what we need and to help move forward and help us define what we want to complete in the classrooms?
And I will say, Jeff, just because it's an analogy that I made up a while ago, I think probably in January, I was speaking in Pittsburgh and talked about AI. And I said, just imagine you're sitting at home, it's Friday night, you're just relaxing after a long week of work, and either the doorbell rings, somebody knocks at the door, the home surveillance ring, whatever it is you have out there goes off, and you're like, oh, you open the door and you're like, hi, can I help you? And there's a thing there because it's AI. It says, hi, I'm AI. Can I come in and check out your house? You're like, it's really not a good time. And thanks for stopping by. Have a great night. You close the door and then you turn around. You're like, there's AI. Like, hey, you have a lovely home. You're like, what are you doing in my house? And AI says to you, I've been here all along. Like, you just didn't realize it. I'm all around you, which is a little bit scary, but that's the reality of it. Is it's not something new, even though it does feel like it is something new because all of these different things we've seen in the last couple of years. But you do some research, you realize back in the middle of the 1900s is when AI really started. But we're seeing this constant evolution and this rapid transformation, not just in education, in all parts of the world. And students that we have in our classrooms now, whether they're the youngest, the earliest learners, all the way up through, need to understand AI, need to know where it is in the world, and need to think about how they might have to have the skills to do some type of work in the future, because it is the number one skill that's in demand. And so thinking about that, like lots of things, learning how to use it as a learning partner, not the shortcut, because at the end of the day, we all know they need to have those foundational skills. And that is a very big concern for a lot of educators that are out there. And I'll just say to Courtney or to Rick, is there anything that you would add to what Jeff had just said?
I don't have anything right now, Courtney.
I don't know. I mean, we spent so much time talking about like the AI tutor and the ways that it can serve as a learning partner. So I'm not sure if we have much to add to that.
I know it's kind of hard. Like he kind of nailed it with a lot of information, and then people in the chat also giving a lot of information to us as well. And it's a tool, and I'm a fan of quotes. There's a great quote out there that it's, AI is just a tool. The choice about how to use it is yours, and figuring out what is going to work best for you, for your own purposes as an educator, also for your students. It's going to be different for everybody. And you just have to take that leap and dive in and go for it and try something. And it may not be the best idea you've ever had. Ask students for feedback. I asked them and they're like, I'm not really sure that was the best idea that you've ever had. So we've been talking for a while now and covered a lot of different grounds and topics in conversation, but I'm going to wrap it up a little bit here to be respectful of everybody's time, because I know we have people that are joining in and it is currently like 2 or 3 or 4 a.m. for them. And they told me that they would be here live and did not want to wait for the recording. So thank you for joining us. But a quick, everybody, like all around. So if you are talking to an educator and they say to you, I'm really worried about AI, that it's going to replace the human connections that make teaching and what we do as educators so powerful, what might you say to them? And whoever wants to go first, I won't call on anybody specifically, but like they say to you, I'm concerned, that human connection, which we've heard in conversations, what would you tell them?
I'd love to dive into this.
All right.
I think I would tell them that I don't want it to. Like, as someone who's at an ed tech company that is AI centric, AI native platform, we don't want AI to replace teachers. Teachers are amazing. Like, the conversations and things that teachers can elicit from students in a classroom is fantastic. And I don't think we'll ever be able to be fully replaced or replicated by AI. And we should probably be skeptical and wary of people who think that it would. But I think what it can do, that we talked about a bit at the beginning of this session, is that it can free up our time. I think Jeff said, like, the most valuable thing that we can get back is time. So for those things that are repetitive, that are annoying, that we don't know how to start, maybe we don't know how to raise an email tone to that one student whose parents are, they're going to give you a weird answer. And you're putting it off, you can use that as like a jumping off point to help you do something that is otherwise maybe fairly repetitive or is just time suck, so that you can have more human moments. And I think that's really the key, is just letting the AI do the things that are mechanical so that you can spend your time being a human.
I love that, Courtney. Thank you so much for sharing. Jeff or Rick?
Jeff?
There's so much in this topic today, and just kind of listening to everybody here, been kind of reflecting a lot on my students, reflecting a lot on the interactions, reflecting a lot on everything that's going on here. And, I'm not really sure where we're going with all this stuff, and I'm looking forward to it. I do like the idea that AI tomorrow is going to be smarter than it is today. I love the fact that every time I turn on a Gemini or a Notebook LM or a Kira or something, any of these tools, there's always something new. There's always something exciting. And, I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on this year. And I'm looking forward to seeing it evolve, and looking forward to sharing with my kids right now.
Well, thank you for that. And Rick?
Yeah, it is an exciting times for sure. And we're all trying to figure out how to make best use of this technology to support learning, support young people, and support teachers. And I totally agree. The teachers are never going to be replaced by AI. There's that essential human connection that good teachers create with their students that can't be replaced. But teachers who don't use AI may be replaced with teachers who do learn to use AI effectively as a tool in their classroom to support students and learning. So, we're just here to encourage you all in your learning process and try and make it easier for you. And we're here to help.
Yeah, thank you. And Alex wrote an article about keeping the human part in AI. Nice. We'll have to check it out. Anybody that is joining in, be sure to check that out as well. And so want to thank all of you for joining in. When I say all of you, I mean this amazing panel of Jeff and Rick and Courtney, also talking about Kira Learning. And thanks to everybody who's been engaged in the conversation. Everybody has just stayed the whole time, shared so many great ideas in the comments and the questions, and I just really appreciate it. And so the best advice I've seen, if I am going to summarize a lot of these kind of concepts for everybody is, we are educators. We are working in education. And even when ChatGPT came out and there was such a scare, I said, who better to prepare students for the future than us. That is what we are in our classrooms, in our schools to do. And so to do that, we have to be willing to dive in and take those risks and see what's out there, try things with our students. A lot of it can be in discussions, just like we've had here tonight. We're talking together with this panel. People are sharing in from all around the world. So you have to love technology that brings all of us together. If anybody out there wants to know the different places people are joining in from, you may have to look at a map, because I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And lots of emails that came in that said can't join in live because it's 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning. But thank you so much to everybody who has shared all the comments, to the panel, of course. And if you are joining in live, you will get a follow-up email that has a link to this recording if you want to go back and watch it and catch some of the great information and the comments that have been popped up, and also some resources for you to check out as well. And if you're catching the recording, same thing to you. We will follow up with an email. We thank you all for joining in wherever you are joining from, at whatever time it is for you. And big thanks to the panel. So stay tuned for the recording and the resources, and have a great rest of your night, morning, or afternoon. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, y'all.